Welcome to the latest edition of Throwing Shade. Today, we're going to look at Latino men and why it was that Donald Trump won 40% of the Latino male vote. I know what you're thinking, that's a community that has been, for want of a better word, victimized by the current administration in so many ways. And so we look at it and we see pictures of children at the border being detained and separated from their parents, and we understand that it was a deliberate policy on the part of the Trump administration to inflict pain. However, what we discovered after the election was over, not everyone in the Latino community views themselves, first of all, as immigrants at all. And that stands to reason. In places like Mexico and Florida, where there were indigenous Cuban and Latino populations, I get that, but still 40%. So if you dig a little deeper, if you mine that data, what you find out is that 67% of Latino men worry about illegal immigration. Yeah, let that cook for a minute. 67% of Latino men worry about illegal immigration. It doesn't sound like it would make sense, except that that statistic isn't quite as high for black men, but it's significant. The reason being is in that area of the employment sector, they are competing directly against newer immigrants. So if you've established a business and you are in the Latino community, self-preservation dictates that you don't have other people coming in to underbid or undercut your business. So in that regard, it makes sense, but nevertheless, the policies of the Trump administration were rather harsh. So we look for a more palatable reason for the Latino community acting in that way. What we discovered, it's not any more palatable, is that the machismo attitude, the machismo persona of Trump and the Trump administration plays very well in the Latino community. And it isn't that he is so strong, but it's the perception that men in the Democratic Party are weaker. When the Lincoln Project was started, Steve Schmidt, who was one of the founders of the Lincoln Party, and those were the biting advertisements that you saw against Donald Trump that were made by a band of never-Trumpers, Republicans who were physically, literally, financially campaigning against Donald Trump. But Steve Schmidt is famous for saying Democrats like to bring a spoon to a knife fight. Democrats bring a wooden ladle, he says, to a knife fight. In other words, Democrats aren't seen as strong. So that persona sells, not just in the Latino male community, but in the African American male community. Donald Trump got 20% of the African American male vote. Now understand that it is incontrovertible that Donald Trump is a racist. And I will say this: if he isn't a racist, he'll do until a racist gets here. The programs, the policies, the way that he spoke, the way he's lived his life, articulate, if not an overt racism, a very subtle racism. The fact that he embraces white nationalist and white nationalist ideology, as I said, if he isn't a racist, he will do until a racist gets here. So this idea of being a strong man is attractive to the Latino, to the African American male community. So here's the thing. So I'm not happy about the fact that we are so ready to abandon what are fundamental policies that shape our lives because of an ego. That doesn't really work with me. However, if that has manifested itself in the electorate, Democrats need to address that. They need to step forward with men who are going to represent a strength about how they go about policies, how they go about passing policies, and understand that while we can be dismissive and say that machismo shouldn't be a political party goal, as long as we also understand that 74 million people voted for that last election. So we can dismiss it, but maybe we'll dismiss it at our own detriment. Anyway, that's my opinion. I'm just throwing shade. Thanks. I'll talk to you next week.